They told me the premium line was over there like I'd wandered into the wrong room at a party I wasn't invited to. The woman behind the counter didn't even look up at first, just pointed with that lazy confidence people get when they think they're untouchable. I remember thinking, not angry yet, just tired. Yeah, this again. What she didn't know was that the man she was brushing off had signed papers less than 8 hours earlier that quietly put her entire company under my control. Let me back up. This happened on a Wednesday morning at Harbor City International, the kind of airport that always smells like burnt coffee and impatience. I hadn't slept. Not because I was partying or reckless, but because I'd been finalizing a deal that had taken 3 years of my life to close. Lawyers, negotiations, late-night calls, all of it finally done before sunrise. I threw on my usual clothes, a worn jacket, dark jeans, sneakers that had seen too many terminals, grabbed my bag, and headed out. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed success. I've learned that looking expensive often makes life harder, not easier. I was flying first class, seat 2A, paid for, confirmed. I walked up, slid my boarding pass across the counter, and said, "Morning." That's when she looked at me. Her eyes didn't see the pass, they scanned me. Head to toe, jacket, shoes. No watch worth bragging about. No designer logo announcing my net worth. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile you use on someone you plan to dismiss. "Sir," she said, dragging the word out, "economy check-in is behind the column. Blue signs." I told her calmly, "I'm on this flight, seat 2A. She let out this little laugh through her nose like I'd just told a joke that embarrassed me more than her. "That seat is reserved for executive-tier customers. It's very expensive. I don't want to hold up the line." Behind me, people shifted. A guy in a tailored suit checked his watch. A woman with perfect hair sighed dramatically. You could feel the audience forming. I asked her to scan the pass. She didn't. Instead, she said the system glitches sometimes, that fake boarding passes were more common than you'd think, that security could be called if necessary. All without ever accusing me directly. That's how they do it. Polite on the surface, poisonous underneath. And then she said the part that still rings in my ears. "This area has a certain standard," she said, lowering her voice, leaning in. "And you're disrupting it. Disrupting. Not my ticket, me." At that point, another passenger stepped forward, loud, confident, clearly enjoying the show. "Is there a problem?" he asked her. Then looked at me like I was blocking traffic. She told him she was handling a situation. He smirked. Phones came out. I could feel that old heat rising in my chest, the one I've spent a lifetime learning how to control. I told her she was making a mistake. She responded by picking up my boarding pass and tearing it clean in half. Then again, dropping the pieces into the trash with a satisfied little shrug. "Problem solved," she said. Economy standby or security? The crowd reacted exactly how you'd expect. A few laughs, a few nods, silence from the rest. I stood there for a second staring at the trash can, not because I was stunned, but because something inside me clicked into place. You know that feeling when you realize the game has changed and the other person has no idea yet. I picked up my bag, nodded once, and walked away. Not toward economy, just away. As I walked, I pulled out my phone. The secure one. Dialed a number I don't use often. When the line connected, I said, "This is Reed Lawson. Authorization code confirmed. Initiate operational freeze." There was a pause. Then, all routes. All routes, I said, effective immediately. I ended the call and checked my watch. 12 minutes. By the time I reached the main terminal, screens were already flickering. Delays turned into cancellations, one by one. People noticed. Confusion spread like smoke. Gate agents whispered to each other, supervisors appeared. The mood shifted from smug to panicked. I stood near the coffee shop, watching it unfold, feeling oddly calm. Someone next to me muttered, "What the hell is happening?" I almost smiled. A young employee approached me, clearly overwhelmed, and said they were sorry that all flights from that airline were temporarily suspended. I nodded and said, "Looks like a system issue." Behind us, voices rose. Up at the premium counter, I could see her now, frantic, tapping her keyboard, calling someone, her confidence evaporating in real time. The same people who laughed earlier were suddenly demanding answers. A guy filming walked over to me, asked if I was the one from the counter, asked if I was okay. I looked into his camera and said I'm fine. But they're about to learn something today. What do you mean, he asked. My name, I said, is Reed Lawson. And as of this morning, I'm the majority owner of this airline. He stared at me like I'd just changed the laws of physics. Within minutes, the crowd thickened. Security hovered unsure who was in charge anymore. The woman from the counter finally approached, her posture completely different now. Sir, she said, voice tight. There seems to be a misunderstanding. I asked her which part of her training involved destroying customer property and threatening people without scanning a ticket. She said she was following protocol. I asked her to explain the protocol that involved judging people by how they look. She hesitated. Cameras leaned in. I thought, she started then stopped. What I asked, she swallowed. I thought you didn't look like you belonged there. There it was, out loud, on camera. I thanked her for being honest. I told her she was relieved of her position effective immediately. I told her supervisor the same after learning how many complaints had been quietly buried. I told the cameras this wasn't revenge, it was accountability. That if discrimination had consequences more often, it wouldn't feel so comfortable. Some people cheered. Others looked uncomfortable. That's fine. Justice isn't supposed to be cozy. Flights resumed later that day. Vouchers were issued. Apologies were sent. Policies changed. Real ones, not the kind written to die in email inboxes. Training became mandatory. Complaints went straight to independent review. And guess what? Business improved. Turns out treating people like humans is good for profits. A few months later, I flew out of that same airport again. Same airline. Same terminal. This time, the agent scanned my pass without a second thought. Smiled. Said, "Have a great flight." That was it. No judgment, no theater. On my way to the gate, I saw the former employee working at a kiosk for another company. She looked different, quieter. She apologized. Not because of who I was, but because of what she'd done. That mattered. So here's why I'm telling you this. Some people think power is about putting others in their place. It's not. Real power is choosing not to. It's deciding that dignity isn't optional, that respect isn't earned by appearance, that justice shouldn't depend on who's watching. I know some of you will say I went too far. Others will say I didn't go far enough. Good. That's the conversation we need to be having. So tell me what you think. Was it right to shut everything down to make a point? Have you ever watched someone get judged before they were heard, or been that person yourself? Drop your thoughts below. Agree? Disagree? Tell your story. Because the only thing worse than discrimination is pretending it's just the way things are.